Hey everybody, this is George Moorhead, Bentley Properties, and I just want to welcome you to our Saturday session. Today we're going to be talking about closing costs and escrow versus what is closing. So first of all, again, my name is George Moorhead, Bentley Properties. Been practicing real estate for a little over 26 years. I've completed over 2,000 residential and commercial transactions. So want to take you through kind of what to expect, what is the difference between escrow, what is the difference between closing, and kind of defining what each one of those are, since they're two different experiences. Plus, I want to do a quick shout out to the team. So the last 2 weeks we did not have a session, and that is primarily because I was in Hamburg, Germany at a Rotary convention with about 26,000 of my best friends, and while I was gone, the team handled everything. So when I got back, it was like nothing had changed. So they did an absolutely stellar job. It was like I had never left. And that is a true sign of an absolutely great team. And just a quick shout out to everybody that, I really appreciate everything that they did while we were out doing good things around the world and whatnot. So with that, let's get going on. Make sure that you hit your wow button, send a couple of hearts, post all your questions. Let me know where you're at. If you have any questions, even if it's afterwards, feel free to post them. We'll respond and reply in kind. So with that, let's go ahead and get going. So escrow versus closing. What's the difference? Aren't they the same thing? And the answer is no. So escrow is the process that happens prior to closing. So closing is the actual recording down at the county of all of the documents that happened during the process of escrow. So an escrow officer is technically a neutral third party that facilitates the transaction between the buyer and the seller in regards to paperwork, making sure liens get paid off, making sure that the new note and deed of trust gets recorded, making sure that the buyer has clear, clean title, and then at the end, the seller gets all their money to go and do whatever they're going to do. All right. That's really the distinction between the two. One is the signing process, closing is the actual recording process, or the conclusion. Now, typically, escrow will happen 2 to 3 days prior to recording. That way, if there's any last minute items, any wire transfers and whatnot on behalf of the buyer, that those get taken care of. In addition to that, there are some lender requirements. If there's a loan, there are some lender requirements that they need to validate and verify that everything has been signed correctly, and escrow helps with that process. But sometimes that can take 1, sometimes 2 days. So we need a couple of days. So therefore, you get 2 to 3 days prior to closing to go ahead and complete your escrow process. Now, with that, let's do this real fast. A lot of people ask, how much is or should I expect with my escrow? And that question gets asked a ton. And here's the thing, there's no standard answer for you. We can give you a range. So you need to anticipate that your escrow type of fees are going to run you about 2% of the purchase price. Now, that's going to include a few things, and that's going to be like title, escrow, recording fees, your loan fees with the lender if you're getting a loan and things like that. And that all gets kind of piled in there. It can be as high as 5%, depending on if you're getting a first and a second, what the complexity of the transaction is actually going to be. During that process, you're actually going to get what's called a settlement statement. And as you can see, there's 2 different columns. Okay, so we have a seller and a buyer. I'm going to go over the buyer side today, and we'll just kind of glance over it, not go too deep in this. But if you have questions, give me a call or post it up in the corner. So the first thing that you're going to see on your settlement statement is your earnest money. Okay, now this right here, that is the money that when you sign a purchase and sale agreement, you and a seller say, yes, we agree on these price and this price and these terms. I promise to purchase, and therefore I'm going to deposit what's called earnest money into an account. that is held with escrow. That way neither party has access to it. So if there's any arguments for one reason or another, if the transaction fails, that money itself is protected until a resolution of how it will be dispersed, right? Okay. I will say that in my 26 years, I have never lost an earnest money, but I have kept many representing sellers. So there's my little plug. All right. So the first thing you're going to see on there is the earnest money on your settlement statement, which is already going to be paid for, but you're going to see that on there. The next line item that you're going to see will be something along the line like your loan balance from the bank, okay? What this is if you're getting a loan, you're actually going to see how much the bank is actually putting forth, right? The next item that you're going to see is your down payment. All right, so these are typically your biggest items that you're going to see right here. All right, and the ones that, you know, primarily are coming from the buyer side as far as money out of your pocket. All right, so as you're getting the loan payments, you're getting your down payment, you've already deposited your earnest money, you're going to see that at the very top. And then on the center column, of course, you're going to have your purchase price, right? Now, this purchase price must equal all of this combined, right, as a total. And that's going to be really important for you to make sure, because if you're coming in and your earnest money and your loan is here, you say, wow, you know, gosh, that's a lot more than I expected. Okay, now we get into the additional items, all right? The additional items that you're going to see is that when banks and escrow actually get ready to do the transaction and the closing process, we have our property taxes. We have our insurance premium, you know, for our homeowners insurance, right? Well, banks collect insurance and taxes up front because they pay them on your behalf, all right? So typically that is going to be between 3 months of taxes. So if you take the taxes, divide that by 12, right? And they're going to take 3 months of that, or up to 6 months, depending on where we're at in the year, how close we are to paying taxes, all right? And they're going to take that amount and they're going to add it on top, okay? And the reason is that they want to have a cushion so that after you start your loan, then each month, as they get to that 6th month, they're going to pay your biannual taxes. So you don't have to worry about it, but they need to collect it up front so they're not in arrears, right? So that they're not saying, oh, we're going to pay out, you know, $2,500 for taxes, but oh, you know what, we still need to collect $1,200 more, all right? So they will collect it actually up front, and that goes into what's called an escrow impound account. So in addition to this, right, you're going to have your property taxes, okay? There we go. Plus, you're going to have insurance. Now, here's the thing. On insurance, they will not only collect a 1-year premium, meaning that you'll have to pay your premium up front, okay? Plus, they're going to collect 2 to 3 months of that premium, because what they're going to do is, again, start collecting so that when that annual cycle comes back around again, they'll have enough to pay your homeowner's insurance, all right? Now, you might say, well, geez, George, they just paid a year of this. Why do they need to collect a year plus 3 months? Okay, well, believe it or not, insurance, like taxes, adjust every single year. And they typically don't adjust downward, they adjust upward. So they collect up to a maximum of 10% of what your gross impound account can be, all right, so that they can adjust for costs. Now, many of you that have owned a home before, you might actually get this statement from the bank and it says, hey, I want to let you know your impound account is shy, you know, $600. Now you have a choice. You can send us a check for $600 and, you know, bring that up to the minimum impound account, or we will take and we'll take that $600. We're going to divide it over 12 months, and then you're going to have to pay that in addition to your payment. And that's a personal choice. They give you that option, but they cannot hold more than 10% in that escrow impound account. So it's not like they're going to carry thousands and thousands and thousands needlessly in that account. All right. Okay. With that, with your taxes and insurance, then you'll have, can you see that? Yep. Okay. Then you're going to have your escrow fee and title. Okay. Now, let me step back. All of this is negotiable when we talk about escrow fees and title. Taxes and insurance, you have to pay. As a buyer, you must pay that. That's your skin in the game. Those aren't allowed to be paid. You need to pay those. Your down payment, unless it's a gift from a family member, needs to be paid by you. Okay. Same thing with your earnest money, and then naturally your loan that you're getting is also from you. Okay, and unless you're getting a cosigner. Now, escrow and title, these can be negotiated. And what it is there's an overall fee, and it is based on price. And this is somewhat of what some people say, hey, what does escrow cost? And I say, well, what's the price of your home? Because it's on a graduated scale. A lower priced home has a lesser escrow fee than a more expensive home. So if you have a $400,000 house, your escrow fee on one side could be something around $700. If you have $1 million house that you're selling or purchasing, your escrow fees can be more than that. It's going to be closer to about $1,800 because it's also based on risk. All right. So same thing with title. So in your purchase and sale agreement, the seller says, hey, not only am I going to hand you clear, clean title, okay, but I'm also going to buy you a title policy that warrants that all of the liens have been removed. Okay. Now, some people say, well, George, there's easements on here. Okay, well, that's a different conversation, but those typically are always allowed on a property for ingress, egress, for utilities and access and things like that. So it's different. That'll be a different day. But on your title aspect of things, you're going to be able to get clear, clean title. Then on your settlement statement, you're also going to see a title policy that you're buying, which is a little bit more extensive for your bank. So technically, the title policy gets paid twice, all right? Once from the seller to the buyer, and then the buyer to the lender. Two different policies. One's a little bit more detailed than the other one, okay? Has a few more protections because the bank is using it as collateral. They want to ensure that they're being protected, right? Just like you. All right. So you get half of an escrow fee. You're also going to get your title fee, all right? Now, unless you agree in writing that you're going to go ahead and have a seller pay for these or vice versa, that is going to be what we call a standard practice, all right? Also into this, let me take this off. Try to do this without wiping this off. Whoa, there we go. There we go. All right. So as we take this off, we're also going to talk about some of the other things that you will see as a buyer, okay? All right. There we go. So you're also going to have what's called loan fees, and we kind of discussed that a little bit. So loan fees from your bank, all right, that's anywhere from 0.5%, right, to 1% of a purchase price, okay? And depending on the bank, depending if it's a broker or whatnot, that's sometimes that is negotiable, sometimes it is not, all right? But it's a point of conversation that you can definitely have. With that, you're also going to have, you'll see a line item for your appraisal, okay? And this is always paid up front, okay, because the bank doesn't want to absorb that cost. Typical appraisal fees are going to run you between $750 and $1,000, depending on the size of the house, okay? With that, you're going to see any credits, all right? So credits can be from a seller most of the time, right? So you're going to see them from the seller. Let's say, for example, on your purchase and sale agreement, you said, hey, you know what, I'm going to put 10% down, but I need a little help with covering my closing costs. I'd like you to pay $5,000 of my closing costs, okay? You may be doing updates to a home. You might be putting carpet in. You might want to do paint. You might be doing something small where you need that extra cash to work with, and so you're having a seller paying closing costs on your behalf. You can also have lender closing costs, right? So I'm not going to delve too far into this, but let's say, for example, that you might remember this from a prior show, right? That let's say par pricing today is 4%, okay? In fact, I can actually write this down. So if par pricing, meaning regular pricing, is 4%, right? If you wanted to buy down the rate, right? There we go. Let's say you bought down the rate and you wanted to buy it down an eighth, okay? They may give you that will cost you, I'm just going to throw out a number. Let's say that's $5,000, okay? Depending on the loan. It's subject to the loan balance and everything else. So you have to pay $5,000 to get that rate down so you can have a better rate if you're going to stay in the home for a long time, right? But let's say you were like, well, you know what? I need the money, so I'm actually going to increase my rate, right, by 1/8, okay? And I'm going to get a $5,000 credit from the bank, which would be here as one example, okay? So the rate, believe it or not, is somewhat negotiable, but only in the sense of if I want a better rate, I pay more. If I'm willing to pay a slightly higher rate but get money back, okay, I can do that too, which helps to offset your costs, right? That would be one of the credits that you would be looking at getting, okay? So these are fees that you will also see on your settlement statement that will be reflected as part of your escrow. I'm sure now you can see how you can get to 2% when 1% is tied up in loan fees, title, escrow. This all adds up really 2.5% just outside of your down payment. That is what's going to take to go ahead and go through that process on a home purchase. All right. Now, for a seller, we would also have a line item for excise tax. That excise tax is 1.78%. That will be adjusting a little bit higher here shortly, which is also a cost that many sellers are unaware of. We're one of the few states that actually has an excise tax that is due. All right. Now, with that, once this is all done, and you have your settlement statement, once you have signed, this goes back to the bank, and the bank takes a look at it and verifies that everything is signed properly and whatnot, and then authorizes escrow to close, in which then you get a phone call, and it says, or an email, and it said, from us you get a phone call saying, hey, congratulations, you have been released to record, okay? That means is then the bank has approved all of the documents, title and escrow have verified that all of the documents are correct. They give it to this little person. He runs down to the county, and unless it's Snohomish County, which they digitally record, goes down and then records these documents, which is the final item, right? So you'll have what's called recording fees, okay? And that'll be the bottom line item that you will typically see, depending on the number of pages of the deed of trust and everything else. And it used to be an inexpensive process. It's gotten mighty expensive of late. First page, I think, just got bumped up to like $108. Used to be like $50. And then each subsequent page has a fee behind that also. All right. So once they run that down to the county, they get it recorded. They get what's called recording numbers. Okay. And then they bring them back to escrow. Escrow validates that that is done. And then we have what's called closing. Right? The transaction is now closed. And then, of course, you're going to get that email. You're going to get that phone call saying, hey, congratulations, you're a brand new homeowner. You're officially closed. Unless otherwise stipulated, 9 p.m. tonight, you get to occupy that home. So with that, that is the difference between escrow and closing. Going through your basic costs of what to expect. Understand that at escrow, you can't come in with a personal check for your documents unless you do it 2 weeks in advance. The reason is that with the banking fraud and whatnot, there's 2 weeks that a typical bank will require to verify that funds are available. In other words, that, hey, funds are here today, but they're gone tomorrow, which would be bad, right? You can wire the funds. That is considered instantaneous. If you do a cashier's check, if it is an out-of-state or not a big bank cashier's check, again, there'll be a hold on that. Typically not quite as long, but there'll still be a hold on that. So you need to make sure that you're planning accordingly. On recording or on wiring, I should say, remember, you'll never be emailed or faxed wiring instructions. those will either be given to you in person or by a secure email that you have logged in. You've provided a extensive password, because wire fraud right now is off the chart. And so it's one of the biggest fraud items going on right now. So remember, you will never be emailed, except for by secure email, wiring instructions. Normally they'll be handed to you, and a wire can happen same day. Remember, it's on East Coast time. So our wire cutoff is about 1:30 here. So if you get your wire in late, you're going to have to wait another day, which means you may have to postpone your sale. So make sure that you're doing all of your planning correctly. Again, that's why we do it 2 to 3 days in advance, so that when you go in, you sign your documents, you get your wiring instructions, you go to your bank, you hand them the wiring instructions, and then they will handle that wire for you, all right? And then, of course, that confirmation will come back to both all parties to let us know that that has happened. All right, so there we go. If you have any questions at all, write them up in the corner, let me know. Do a quick shout out. If you really enjoyed this, send it off to your friends. If you have additional questions, let me know. We do have a closing cost or escrow flowchart. If you want a copy of that, we will post that for you so that you can go ahead and see it, and it'll kind of, again, give you the idea of what to expect. In the meantime, you guys have an absolutely fabulous day. It was great chatting with you. We're glad to be back, and have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.